Keek on the mic, keek on the mic. Keek on the mic, keek on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Like always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So, an interesting topic on Keek on the Mic today, and this may get you guys a little riled up, as the report out of Chicago is this: ESPN's Keyshawn Johnson rips into the Chicago Bears roster. And obviously, this has been a common theme for the Chicago Bears, as the Chicago Bears have been subject to a lot of criticism all offseason long, and this is obviously no surprise, as this is because new GM Ryan Poles is tearing this roster down and building it the way that he wants it. So, but some of the ways he's doing this is by parting ways with those old expensive contracts and by signing a lot of cheap prove-it deals. And we all know this roster is far from complete. We all know this. As Bears fans, we know that the Bears are just building up to hopefully a Super Bowl contender in the near future. But all offseason long, analysts from various outlets have criticized the Bears roster and aren't expecting much from this team in 2022. But ESPN's Keyshawn Johnson is the latest critic, and he absolutely tore into the Chicago Bears roster by saying this on NFL Live. Quite frankly, this roster sucks, Johnson said on NFL Live. That's the reality of it. It's not a good roster. There's no players there. Think about it. They've only got 2 or 3 players that could probably start on another team. Wow. Wow. That is a bold statement. Obviously, this is nothing new. We've heard a lot of critics all offseason long bash our football team, bash the crap out of this Chicago Bears football team. So obviously, this is nothing new. And this doesn't absolutely get me upset. It gets me a little bit riled up. You know, at some point, you're like, damn, are they going to leave the Chicago Bears alone? Everyone knows that we're kind of in a rebuilding mode. Everyone knows that Ryan Poles had to clean up the mess that Ryan Pace left them. Everyone knows that, but the critics aren't easing up. And the funny thing about Keyshawn Johnson is that I've seen him praise Ryan Poles for some of the moves as well. So it's like 50-50, right? Choose a side that you want to be on. But this is an absolutely bold statement from Keyshawn Johnson. And his point is very clear, point blank. He thinks that this Bears roster sucks. And unfortunately, that's just his opinion. As an analyst, as a commentator myself here on a podcast platform where I give my opinions, I have a lot of bold opinions, right? Sometimes, right? And that is my opinion. You guys have opinions sometimes. And we can't take that away from him, or we can't take that away from each other when we have bold opinions about our football team, the Chicago Bears. But something that stuck out to me, and like I said, this got me riled up a little bit because of some of the wording that he used in his statement. And something that really stuck out in his statement is there's no players there. They've only got 2 or 3 players that could probably, he said, that could probably start on another team. Out of everything that he said in his statement on NFL Live, that little statement in his overall statement really stuck out to me. And that's really what kind of got me riled up, and the reason why I wanted to come on and give my rebuttal to Keyshawn Johnson on that statement. And like I said, that is a very bold statement, and that is his opinion, but it is very bold. And bashing the Bears roster is one thing. Go at it. They've been doing it all offseason long, bashing Ryan Poles and bashing what he's been doing to the roster. And I think the reason why they are bashing Ryan Poles and the roster is because they're basically saying, do you really want Justin Fields to develop? You need to be able to put pieces around them. But in Ryan Poles' mind, he feels like he's doing that. He's putting a bunch of young guys around him, and he's hoping that they all groom and grow up and develop together, which when you look at it, that can actually be really good in the long term. It may not look great in the short term, but long term, I can understand what Ryan Poles is thinking. But like I said, bashing the Chicago Bears roster is one thing. We're used to that at this point. But saying that they have no one is kind of lightweight disrespectful to the players that we actually have on this roster that could start elsewhere. Like I mentioned, Keyshawn Johnson, NFL Live, said that the Bears have 2 or 3 guys that could probably, he didn't even guarantee that these guys could start on other teams. 2 or 3 guys that could probably start on other NFL teams. And I'm not sure why I'm letting this bother me so much, but it is kind of lightweight disrespectful because we do have players on this Chicago Bears roster right now that could absolutely be a starter elsewhere. And you guys can come on here and tell me, comment down below if you think I'm wrong, but the Bears have guys that can definitely start on another team. Guys like Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith, David Montgomery, Jalen Johnson, Darnell Mooney, Cody Whitehair, and I'm pretty sure there's some other guys on the Chicago Bears roster that I just can't think of on the top of my head, but I just gave you guys 6 guys. Keyshawn Johnson in his statement said the Bears only had 2 to 3 guys that could probably start elsewhere. I just listed off 6 guys, Keyshawn Johnson. 6 guys. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can bash the Chicago Bears roster, but don't sit there and say that the Bears only have 2 to 3 guys that can start elsewhere. That's just kind of disrespectful to a point. That's when you know that he's just trying to get a rise out of people, and it's working because he got a rise out of me. I'll be honest. I wasn't really upset at what he said, but it did kind of ruffle my feathers a little bit when he made that statement. Like I said, I just list 6 guys, Keyshawn Johnson. I'm just saying. And I just want to get off my chest to prove my point. That's part of the rebuttal of what Keyshawn Johnson had to say. Another thing that I want to get off my chest before I let you guys go today here on Keek on the Mic. What are the critics like Keyshawn Johnson going to say if the Chicago Bears come out and shock people this season? And don't tell me that it's not possible. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals last season. Yeah, they had a young wide receiving core, right? They had some pieces, but did anyone think that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to go all the way to the Super Bowl? What did it take? It's not like the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line was perfect, right? They had some rough patches. I think they had some kinks to work out. Why do you think they added more offensive linemen this offseason? But did anyone think that the Cincinnati Bengals were actually going to go all the way to the Super Bowl? They had a young second-year quarterback that had a lot of expectations. Sounds a lot like Justin Fields, right? An uncertain offensive line, much like the Chicago Bears, right? A young head coach, right? A new head coach, let me correct that, a new head coach, right? Like Matt Eberflus. So don't sit here and tell me that it's not possible. But what are the critics going to say if the Chicago Bears come out and actually shock people? And like I said, all the critics over this offseason have said that the Bears roster sucks or that the Bears will have the worst record in the NFL, saying that the Chicago Bears will win only 3 games. And I'm not saying the Chicago Bears are going to come out and shock people in terms of going all the way to the Super Bowl. You never know. Crazy things happen in the NFL all the time. I'm just saying that for the people that are saying the Bears roster sucks, right, or we're only going to win 3 games, what happens if they come out and win 9 games? If the Bears go 9-8, that's shocking the critics. That's proving the critics wrong. Because check this out. Look what Ryan Poles has done to the roster, right? I just mentioned it earlier in the podcast. He signed young, cheap talent on 1-year prove-it deals. So if the Bears win 8, 9, 10 games, that's proving the critics wrong. And the funny thing about that is that the Chicago Bears are still building. This roster is far from over. So if the Bears do win 8, 9, 10 games, that's a win for Ryan Poles. That's a win for the future of the Chicago Bears, because if the Bears win 8, 9, even 10 games, that means Justin Fields has done his job. That means he developed. That means Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, the coaching staff are doing their jobs. That means Ryan Poles' master plan worked because he's thinking about long-term success. But what are the critics going to say? You can't backtrack from the bold statements. Like, Keyshawn Johnson, you can't backtrack from this statement now. You can't say, oh, I was just joking later on if the Bears do come out and win 8, 9 games, right? Let's say they sneak into the playoffs for some crazy reason. It's not impossible. You can't backtrack. So my thing about these critics It's your opinion. I respect. Go ahead. Say whatever you want about the Chicago Bears. But do not backtrack on what you said before. Don't come out after the fact saying, oh, I never said that, because now we have it. It's proof. There's videotape on NFL Live of you saying that this Bears roster sucks, which you, like I said, I'll repeat this until I'm blue in the face. You are entitled to your own opinion, like I'm entitled to my own opinion, like all of you guys are entitled to your own opinion, but do not backtrack and say that you knew that Justin Fields was going to have a good year. That, oh, I was just joking about the Bears, saying that the Bears roster sucks. So stay on your side. Pick a side and stay there. Don't go back and forth. Like, I have confidence. Obviously, I'm a Bears fan, and I try to be as realistic as possible, but I am cautiously optimistic about this football team. I don't count our team out until we see the results, until we actually play games. You never know who's going to be good or bad. Of course, you have these teams like the Buffalo Bills. You kind of know they're going to be good, right? Maybe the Los Angeles Rams, you know that they're going to probably be good this year. But other than that, you don't know what's going to happen. You always have those sleeper teams that you don't know what's going to happen. And the Chicago Bears can easily be one of those sleeper teams. So once again, what are the critics going to say if the Bears come out and shock people? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. Before I let you guys go, though, I want to ask you guys one question before I end today's episode of Keek on the Mic. How do you guys feel about Keyshawn Johnson's bold statement on NFL Live? Give your take on it. Let's have a conversation. Let me know how you feel about Keyshawn Johnson's comments down below in the comment section. Before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms. And make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, I'll be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys. Him bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.